It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about a great book. I mean, it looks fantastic. It feels fantastic. It's a nice hardbound book, and it's a combination of, I don't know, some like a cookbook and a songbook and ideas on how to celebrate the faith throughout the liturgical year with your family. It's called Around the Year with the Von Trapp Family. And joining us to talk about it is Rob Kenney. Thanks for being here, Rob.
Hey, thanks very much for having me, Kyle.
So, how many times have you watched The Sound of Music?
Well, so as a father of 7, and actually all girls, nice. I guess I could sort of relate to Captain Von Trapp to an extent, but I can't even count the number of times it's played, either at home or even in the car when we're doing long road trips. It's a tremendous number of times.
So this book was written by Maria Von Trapp. And how accurate would you say the movie is to her life? Is that actually who she is as a person?
So I think it's a great question. What we all know Maria Von Trapp as Fraulein Maria from the movie The Sound of Music, and I think a lot of people never really considered how much of a Catholic movie that was. Truly a faith film before there even was such a thing as faith films, which I think fundamentally gets to why people do love it, because it's not overly proselytizing, but yet it's such a great example of what faith means. Right. And I do think it does show Maria as she was, right? Someone who was devoutly Catholic, really tried to live the life, right, even to the extent of considering, discerning becoming a nun, and then deciding and realizing that wasn't where she was called. Yeah. And then following God's grace to, go serve this family, to eventually fall in love with Captain Von Trapp and then continue their family forward.
And so this book is actually something that she wrote. Is that true?
Yeah, correct. She documented essentially all of their family traditions, as well as many Austrian traditions, and then even what they picked up when they came to America, and compiled it into this beautiful collection of the ways their family kept the faith a center of their life, even with all their travels and when they did their singing tours and things like that. They continued to live their faith.
And it goes through liturgically different ideas that you can do to celebrate the faith. And then at the end, there's all kinds of other things of anything from engagements to different sacraments and things like that, and how to celebrate feast days or saint days, or baptismal days. But let's maybe start with the liturgical year. Why do you think it's important that we celebrate feasts of the liturgical year?
Well, fundamentally, the church gave us these feasts to help us stay connected to the faith and understand the beauty of our faith. We're not a faith of just hellfire and brimstone. We're a faith of joy and life and light. And we can't be that if we're not celebrating those feasts. So the idea of really focusing on those traditions and celebrating the feasts and truly keeping ourselves grounded really will help us be better Catholics. And at a time of Advent when most of us are, certainly in America, are very focused on all the commercialization and everything coming at our faces, to be able to step back and say, but we're preparing for the arrival of Christ, and get your family to take those types of actions is something that helps us to reach a better inner peace and to focus on what we're really doing and why Christmas is so important. And other feasts, of course, as we go through the year. Yeah.
And so the book does open up with Advent. Can you talk about, since we are in the season of Advent, can you talk about some of the things that are in the book to help families to celebrate the Advent season?
Yeah, it's really great because she talks about so many different things there. And frankly, there's some things that I'm implementing with my family. And also, I saw that we were sort of already doing, but maybe not quite to the depth that she exposes. And so we do a thing with Secret Sister, with Secret Santa playoff, right? Where the kids all draw names and, a small gift kind of thing for everybody. And in previous years, we've occasionally done it, but she focuses it where it needs to be, on Christkindl, right? So the child Christ. And so while, yes, you do draw names, it's really about now taking the season of Advent for the person whose name you've drawn to now just do something in secret that's nice for that person every day of Advent, right? Because you're truly now focusing on the sacrificial love of Christ and how beautiful a gift that was for us, but now you share it with other people in your family. So it's a great way to recognize Advent, right? And then even bringing in, because of course the liturgical year has a new year, and that's where we're going right now with Advent, bringing in a focus on the saints and how do we have friends in heaven that can help us live our faith better, to the extent of not just choosing your family member's name out of the hat, but also choosing a saint. And then your responsibility is to now pray with that saint every morning in your devotional, and then also do as much research as you can, obviously age appropriate, but as much research as you can, and then share that with the family. So now you build this legion of saints that your family is in touch with and is engaged with and is praying with, that will now help us all focus on getting to the ultimate goal. So just some wonderful things in there. Of another really fun one that I liked was her focus on songs, right? What are we all hearing right now on the radio and various and sundry courses, whether it be your playlist on Spotify or the like, right? It's all like Christmas song, Christmas song, Christmas songs. And so by the time Christmas comes around, you're kind of tired of them, right? You've heard them day in and day out. She says, no, focus on Advent songs, the things that are preparing us for the coming of Christ. And something as simple as Silent Night should never be played until Christmas Eve at midnight mass, right? And if you think about that and you think of the power of that song, it becomes so much more powerful when you focus it in the right time frame. So those are the kinds of things in Advent that she's asking us to do that really do help us start to be better prepared for the coming Christmas feast, right, and the celebration of Christ's birth.
And there are a bunch of Advent songs in the book here too.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and I'm excited because my girls all do piano and sing, and so I'm excited to hear them start playing them and, just see what it sounds like, right? These are things that we haven't really done before, so it's going to be exciting to add to our own family tradition this year. Yeah,
because, a lot of I'm not even familiar with a lot of these songs, so some of it is kind of figuring it out, which could be an adventure in itself, sitting down at the piano, like you said, and trying to figure out how the song goes. I guess you can look them up on YouTube or something, probably find somebody play it and get an idea of how it's supposed to go.
But this is also part of what I think Maria brings to us in this book, right? So around the year really helps us to now focus on the family. And in a simpler time, maybe, I'm not saying it was a better time necessarily, but frankly, they had to do these things and they had to make their own Advent wreaths because you couldn't go buy a $2 one at Walmart, right? So you needed to focus the family on doing these things. So the children all learned to play and learned to sing the songs, and it became part of the tradition was actually spending time as a family, right? And that's one of the things that I think we as Catholics are trying to achieve, right, is to bring back that beautiful family unit, that domestic church of the family, and we need these types of tools to help us really make that happen.
Yeah. We're talking with Rob Kenney, who is with Sophia Institute Press, who published Around the Year with the Von Trapp Family, actually written by Maria Von Trapp and put together with all kinds of great visuals. And it's really a good-looking book, as well as such a great resource for families. And I'm kind of curious, how many of the recipes have you tried out so far?
Well, to be frank, I haven't had a chance yet because my girls have been doing all theirs. But the beautiful thing is both my wife and my 13-year-old daughter love to bake. And so I can tell you my 13-year-old is itching to get her hands on this and get started, which means I'm probably going to have to go spend a lot of money on groceries to make sure we have everything. But, it's the way it goes, right? And but it's also the beauty, right? Because, who cares if they come out perfect or wrong, because it's all part of the adventure of doing it, right? And building that kind of relationship in the home that allows us to focus on what we're supposed to be, which is our faith and the beauty of it, and not just getting mired in, Christmas trees and polar bears, right? Because what do they have to, the polar bear, what does that have to do with Christmas? It's Coke. Right. But let's instead focus on St. Nicholas, or even celebrating the feasts of the saints that occur within Advent, like St. Barbara, which is focused on December 4th, where wonderful saint that most of us probably don't really think about very much. But here she is, invoked often against lightning and sudden death, and she's the patron of miners and artillerymen, but she's also apparently invoked by young girls to pick the right husband for them. So clearly she's going to be a go-to for me for quite a while, but, as we go through this. But, and just some fun traditions that they do around this, where they snip cherry tree stems and they put them in a vase in a dark corner, and then on Christmas Eve, whoever's stem blossoms is apparently the next person to get married. We'll not be looking for that anytime soon. But, it's a great way to just step back and realize that you get to know the saints, right, all through the year. And they have feast days on purpose, and the church placed them there, usually around their death or martyrdom or what it may be. But also they occur very providentially throughout the liturgical calendar. So I think it's a very important thing to invoke and to really bring into our own families.
Yeah, can you give us a few more of the highlights besides Advent and Christmas being very prominent parts of the book? What are some of the other things that are hit on in the book?
Yeah, wonderful. So she actually, in around the year with the Von Trapp family, she goes into a beautiful discussion, fascinating discussion around the origin of Sunday and how the Von Trapps themselves really didn't understand why it was Sunday and how they learned about the development of the celebration of Sunday as the Lord's Day through a series of conversations with a priest that often said Mass in their chapel in Austria. And it's truly interesting to start to get some of that history, but it's presented in a very approachable, very readable way. And then later in the book, she talks about celebrating with our family on earth, and you sort of alluded to that at the beginning of our conversation around all the different things, right? So celebrating baptisms and marriages and the different sacraments. And she's talking about really the simple things we can do with our families throughout the year that will foster a stronger family, right? And even better, because you start to have discussions about your faith and what they're reading and what they're learning, you actually start to build out the ability in your children to form an opinion of their own, but then state it openly and respect another person's opinion. Because when you're in a family, right, it's not a guarantee that we all think exactly the same. So to start to build that very essence of what a discussion should be, which I think we could agree is clearly a very lost art in today's society, right, that you can actually have differing opinions and respect each other for it. So a lot of things like that just work very well. And I think what I really like best about this book around the year with the Von Trapps is that it's a simple recognition of that, maybe while life wasn't 100% better in the early 20th century, there were definitely a few things that they were doing right. And well. And I think simply shifting our focus in how we approach our daily life and using a book like this to really help us bring those types of traditions into the family will just bring us closer to Christ and strengthen our faith, especially in these frantic and harrowing times.
Well, I think you guys nailed it on this, and I think all somebody has to do is pick it up and look through it a little bit, and they'll see why it's such a great book. I don't know if you can quite get how awesome this is online and looking at pictures, but it really is a great book. Where can people get a copy of it?
Well, yeah, thanks. And it's a fantastic Christmas gift, being that it is that season. So you can get it at sophiainstitute.com/aroundtheyear. And if you use coupon code radio25, you can get 25% off the book if you order in the next week or two.
Oh, there you go. Great. Again, it's called Around the Year with the Von Trapp family, and the author is actually Maria Von Trapp. So thank you so much, Rob Kenney, for joining us today and sharing with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You guys have a blessed Advent.